Hello, yes, it is me, Jazza, your favourite politically engaged queer, and I'm asking the same questions that you are right now. Primarily, can I pull off this bandana? Let me know. We're at the stage of the global pandemic when many countries are deciding to start opening up their economies and loosening some of their lockdown restrictions. So I thought, why don't I have a look at some of the major countries affected by this pandemic and decide who did it better. Obviously, this is the internet and 2020, so personalities matter, so I'm going to specifically be ranking the world leaders. There's going to be a couple of statistical inputs into this. First of all, what the leader themselves has done, whether or not I personally like them, and then the only serious stat, which is number of deaths per 100,000 members of their country's population, as per Johns Hopkins University on the 24th of May 2020, which is when I pulled all of this data. And when I say pulled data, I copied and pasted it into a spreadsheet. But pulled makes me sound so much more, tech savvy. There are, of course, a certain number of limitations in using this stat. Each country records deaths differently. Each country and state has different testing capabilities for COVID-19, which can affect reporting. There's so many things that come into this, but this is a satirical video. And if you wanted a statistics course, you should have gone to lynda.com, who aren't supporting this video, but that's fine, I'm not bitter about it. This is just a light-hearted tear maker video that happens to be about a global pandemic that has killed hundreds of thousands of people. Am I your new problematic fave? Yes, I am. A lot of people, when they make a tear maker video, will do a pre-made list, and it's meant to be kind of like pretty lightweight in terms of content production, whereas I've ended up spending hours in WHO data and foreign media sites and creating my own assets because I think they look prettier. Is this an efficient use of my time? No. But I have a brand to uphold, and was that a humble brag? Yes, it was. Let's start ranking these global leaders. First up, let's do my own leader, Boris Johnson. God help us. So the United Kingdom has 258,504 confirmed cases of COVID-19, 36,757 deaths, which equates to 55.2 deaths per 100,000 members of the population, which is not great. Boris has been criticised on many a front. It's been said that the UK dithered too much and waited too long to actually go into lockdown, that there wasn't enough ring fencing around care homes, where a lot of our deaths have been. Medical staff haven't been protected very well, and lots of them have died because we don't have enough testing and personal protective equipment. And then once, when we bought tons of PPE from Turkey, when it actually arrived, turns out we'd spent a ton of money on personal protective equipment that didn't actually do the job. It's been a bit of a mess, guys. I actually thought it started off pretty good for Boris. He had the stay home, protect the NHS, save lives mantra. Worked. Then, a couple of weeks ago, he changed this up, and it's now, see if I can remember it, stay alert, control the virus, something. Now, lots of you will have been very confused by this new message, but to you Ramoning cucks, I tell you this, it is very clear. Stay alert means precisely that. Stay alert. I myself have been awake for the last 7 days, just staying alert, controlling that bloody virus. Right now, there's also this massive scandal over his chief advisor travelling to another home in Durham, loads of other medical advisors to regional governments, to national governments, have already lost their jobs because they have broken lockdown rules. And then this guy, Dominic Cummings, it's all getting, my Twitter timeline is really intense. And it's making it's making Boris Johnson look like a little bit of a bitch who doesn't really know what he's doing. So, how should we rank him? You know what, I'm not putting him in D, because we should probably save that for the really bad leaders, and that stay home, protect the NHS, save lives was just exquisite political communications. So we're going to put Boris Johnson in C tier. And I'm not sorry about it. Oh, and now we're going to New Zealand, and it's Jacinda Ardern, and she's going straight in S tier, and I'll tell you for why. It is not because she has some of the best hair. It is not because she is able to keep cool when doing a press conference while there is an earthquake going on around her. And it's not just because she has the sexiest husband who likes to fish and was a pregnant new mother icon leading a world power, a state. She's everything I don't aspire to do, that, I'll be honest. It sounds very stressful, but she's brilliant. But check out these stats. New Zealand has, to date, only 1,504 confirmed cases of COVID-19, with 0.42 deaths per 100,000 members of their population. The UK had 55. That's only 21 deaths for the whole country. And they are currently bouncing along the bottom of zero. They've had basically no cases for the past few weeks. New Zealand have actually tried something a little bit out of the ordinary when it comes to their response to COVID-19. Rather than flatten the curve, like most countries, they've decided to squish it, destroy the curve, squash that curve. Because they went into lockdown early and they went into lockdown hard, they've been able to completely eradicate any new cases from the islands of New Zealand. They went from 1,500 cases on the 23rd of March to no new cases at all by the 20th of May, completely eradicating new spread of the virus in under 2 months, which is mad. We already stand Jacinda Ardern and her hot husband and her compassionate governance, but now I just want her to run everything because she's doing annoyingly well, actually. How dare you? Another world leader who's doing stuff slightly differently, Stefan Löfven from Sweden. I'm aware that's probably not how you pronounce his name. Sweden currently has 33,188 cases of COVID-19, 3,992 deaths, which is a rate of 39.2 deaths per 100,000 members of the population. Not that low. Much like New Zealand, Sweden have looked at what everybody else has done in flattening the curve and just gone, nay. Though I don't think there's anywhere that they officially use the term, herd immunity seems to be a major driver of the Swedish philosophy when it comes to approaching this virus, trying to make sure that as many members of their population are actually do catch the virus and then are immune to it and therefore passing it on to people in any potential future waves that the virus has further down the line. Sweden has essentially trusted their population to do the right thing with minimal restrictions. So there aren't any restrictions on businesses. Most businesses have stayed open. Schools are still open for the most part. I had a conversation with a Swedish friend of mine who went to a restaurant to eat in the restaurant. It's madness. It also possibly would be quite difficult for Sweden to be able to implicate some kind of lockdown because of some specifications on citizens' rights in its constitution that says that it needs to afford citizens freedom of movement within the realm and also to leave the realm. And just to pause for a second, I love that Sweden, in its constitution, refers to itself as a realm. It gives me big Dungeons and Dragons vibes. I'm here for it. Their deaths per 100,000 of population are pretty high, close to 40, but they're nowhere near as bad as some other countries like the UK and Italy. But the thing is, we don't really know if long-term this strategy from Sweden is actually going to pay off. So for now, we're going to put the Prime Minister, Stefan Löfven, in B tier and see how this shakes out. Next up, we're going to go with Mutti. Mein Handy is verloren. Angela Merkel from Germany. Deutschland. Germany I'll stop, has 179,986 confirmed cases with 8,261 deaths. That's only 9.96 deaths per 100k population. Just a moment to acknowledge, actually, if you don't mind. Angela Merkel has been in charge of Germany for 15 years. That is nearly half of my lifetime. She became the Chancellor of Germany like 6 months after YouTube was created. That's nuts. And she does it by winning elections. Crazy. She was actually planning on stepping down this year, so insert an expectation versus reality of your 2020 meme right here. But because she has a scientific background and she's really liked generally by the German people, she decided to stick around. And so now their mother, they call her mother, which is creepy, stop that, Germany, but Mutti, she's back on the scene and she's squashing that curve, darling, yes. I'm going to do some comparisons with the UK because I'm literally making a tier maker list. Germany actually had its first case of COVID-19 4 days before the UK recorded their first. And so they kind of entered this crisis in lockstep. But Germany just seems to have coped with it quite a lot better. 9.96 deaths in Germany versus 55 deaths per 100k of population in the UK. And Germany was just better prepared than the United Kingdom. The UK's National Health Service relies on running on just in time and kind of like efficiencies, whereas the German system seems to have a lot more capacity for testing, hospital beds, ventilators. They also apparently had a much more certain plan, whereas the UK dithered, wasn't sure what approach it was going to have towards the virus. Was it going to be herd immunity? Was it going to be squishing the curve? Basically, Germany is kind of the ulterior, the other world that could have been. And so for that reason, Angela, you're an A tier, darling. We love to see it. Now, Iceland, you're way up there in my expectations. Love you to bits. Great Eurovision entry. You were robbed. Their leader, Katrin Jakobsdóttir. That's not an Icelandic accent. Their leader, Katrin Jacob's daughter, who the fuck knows? They've had, on Iceland, 1,804 cases, 10 deaths, which equates to only 2.83 deaths per 100k population. They, island state, done pretty good. They've done in New Zealand. They've pretty much squished the curve so that they've had no new cases for the last few reporting days. But Iceland also have gone pretty Super Saiyan on testing, and they have been trying to test everyone. Not only people who are symptomatic, not only people who think they have the virus, but everybody. And they're saying that Iceland is probably going to be where we're going to find benchmarks for data on infection rates for COVID-19 because there's so many different methodologies across the world from country to country. And so for that, Katrin Jakobsdóttir, I need to stop trying to pronounce Icelandic names. We're sticking you an A tier, hun. Very good, thank you. You're giving back. We appreciate that. Next up, we're going to another Nordic, Finland, with their leader Sanna Marin, who last year became the world's youngest head of state. She is 35 years old. I am 31, and I'm wearing a bandana and putting videos of myself on the internet. So, that's my life. Finland has recorded 6,568 cases of COVID-19 with 306 deaths, which equates to 5.55 deaths per 100k of population. Pretty good. I've included Finland in here because I wanted to talk about the fact that they have... This is ingenious, but it also terrifies me. They've classed social media influencers, the job I do, as essential workers. Because we reach audiences, perhaps, that the government isn't able to do, right? And so they've been using Instagram and YouTube creators to disseminate government communications about how to control the virus, about debunking internet rumors and all of that kind of stuff. And only a millennial leader would do that and could do that. And I love that. I am worried that being labelled an essential worker alongside medical staff and bus drivers and postal workers, for example, may go to some creators' heads because we are nothing if not slightly obsessed with ourselves. But I love this as a tactic. So, Sana Marin, you're going in A tier as well, actually. There we go. Very good. A quickie with Italy. Molto bene, voglio pasta, il leader Giuseppe Conte non è molto buono. I did GCSE Italian, that's embarrassing. To date, Italy has 229,327 confirmed cases of COVID-19, 32,735 deaths, with a death rate per 100k of population of 54.17. Used to be worst in the whole of Europe, then overtaken by Britain. What? Yes! There were a lot of really inappropriate jokes going around about Italy and COVID-19. But they were funny. They said something along the lines of, COVID-19 is like pasta. It originated in China, but the Italians are going to spread it across the world. And I'm like, that is dark humour that I am here for. Italy got hit hard and got hit early in this crisis and didn't do very well in the demographics lottery either. They have a problem of, they have an aging population, high levels of smoking, and this is a pulmonary disease primarily. They also have big family households where you'll have multiple generations in the same household. It was really early on. We didn't know a huge amount about the virus, and lockdown was like a new thing. You can't... I feel sorry for Italy. One interesting thing about the response that Italy had to coronavirus, and praise of Giuseppe Conte, was that he chose preserving life over the economy because they had such a hard lockdown. And they started being the kind of like blueprint for a lot of other European countries, especially Spain and France, actually. And so you've got to give him some credit. And I don't want to put him in C tier with Boris, because I think that's just harsh. I feel like B is probably too... Oh, this is difficult. B is probably too generous, because lots of people have died. I'm going to put him in C with Boris. Even though I do think he has done... Well, I'll put him ahead of Boris, right? I think he has done better than Boris. Now, short, little, cheeky trip over to Asia. First off, South Korea with their president Moon Jae-in. Did I pronounce that right? Mm-hmm. Thank you. South Korea have recorded 11,190 cases of COVID-19, 266 deaths, which equates to 0.52 deaths per 100k of population. One recent spike of, I think it was kind of like a few dozen new cases, came from a load of people going gay clubbing. I take personal responsibility for that as representative of the gays. Sorry. So I'm not going to rank Moon myself, because I'm lucky enough to live with a national of the South Korean place. Sienna, do come in. Come on. Hello. Say hello.
Hello.
Hello. You're going to work out, are you?
Yeah.
So you recently... This is the weirdest angled interview. You recently were in Korea and experienced lockdown. What was it like there?
It was safe. I had the app that checks where I am for 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And I had to check in twice a day. If not, the police will come in my place.
Oh my.
I know.
Golly. Well, based on that, where would you place Mr. Moon? So, in S tier we have Jacinda Ardern from New Zealand, Angela Merkel, some of the Nordics in A, Boris is in C.
C?
Just you, I haven't gotten to Boris,
Okay.
to Donald Trump yet, have I? So. Where would you put Mr. Moon?
S, please.
S, please.
Yes.
Okay.
He's amazing.
He's amazing. Great. Well, this is the Moon cult. Thank you. You can go now. I've used you enough. Close the door if you would. What you heard that South Korea have been really good at is both testing and contact tracing. Sienna got tested twice, had to check in twice a day on her app when she returned to South Korea, really briefly. They really are kind of like knocking it out the park. S tier is probably justified. Going just south of South Korea, we're now going to go over to Taiwan and their president, Tsai Ing-wen. Taiwan have recorded only 441 cases of COVID-19, 7 deaths, which equates to 0.03 deaths per 100k of population. Taiwan, you've done a New Zealand, guys. Taiwan also managed to completely luck out in the vice presidential sweepstakes, where they happened to have a VP who is an epidemiologist who specialises in viruses, which, I mean, what's the opposite of Mike Pence? It's Taiwan. It's Taiwan. There's been a lot of awkwardness around Taiwan because they're not officially a member of the World Health Organization because China exists, and that's an awkward relationship. But because I love Tsai Ing-wen and I'm a Taiwan fanboy, and a death rate of 0.03 per 100k of population, boom, S tier. Well done, Taiwan. Quick hop, skip and a jump across the Taiwan Straits to the Chinese mainland, where Xi Jinping, the human embodiment of Winnie the Pooh, is running the shop. And let's talk about China. China officially has 84,084 confirmed cases of COVID-19, 4,638 deaths, which equates to 0.33 deaths per 100k of population. Now, do we believe that? Considering other nations' reaction to COVID-19 and how quickly it spread, there are lots of people who don't think these numbers are accurate. Xi Jinping's narrative has been that China sacrificed itself, and specifically Hubei province, where the city of Wuhan is, where this apparently originated, and tried to contain the virus in China as much as possible, buying other countries precious time, which so many in the West squandered, especially the United States. Oh, those 笨蛋的美国人. That's what the Communist Party are telling themselves anyway. Xi Jinping has also been really good at deflecting any criticism of him onto local officials, which is kind of like a running theme of how the Central Communist Party deal with critique of how they handle things. However, there are critiques of Xi Jinping that he dragged his feet in actually declaring this an important health event for a good couple of weeks. Those infection and death numbers are just implausibly low as well. There's also thinking that it may have been a lot more widespread because there were low levels of testing outside of Hubei province itself. He also basically hid from public view for like 2 weeks at the end of January and early February. And then, as the virus seemed to be more under control in Hubei province, then essentially did a victory lap, claiming that it was all him. I don't know, man. President Xi, probably the most powerful leader since Mao Zedong, is what everybody says. Just because the data isn't there. And to be fair, they have been very generous in kind of like providing information about the virus. Am I going to put it in B tier? Is that too generous? I'm gonna go B tier because I might want to visit China at some point again in the future. Please don't blacklist me. Now I'm saving the worst till last, which is why next I'm going to do Donald Trump from the United States of America. Yeah, you heard that right. Someone's doing worse. In terms of absolute numbers, the US has been hit worse by this virus. 1,622,612 confirmed cases of COVID-19, 97,087 deaths, which equates to 29.68 deaths per 100k of population. I don't know where to start with Donald Trump dealing with this crisis. There is the general stuff of him being really inflammatory with journalists, and him also picking favourites and picking fights with governors of different states that he doesn't like. He also famously said, when having heard a medical professional talk about the fact that using disinfectant on the virus and sunlight on the virus, it reduces its lifespan quite significantly. After which he then suggested that you could get sunlight inside the body of infected people, not on kind of like the droplets of the virus that can spread the disease, and suggested ingesting bleach or injecting bleach into people. He's also taken it into his own hands to start taking hydroxychloroquine, which there are suggestions that it may boost your immunity to COVID-19, but there's not really very much evidence about it. And actually, there was a study in The Lancet which showed that it increased the chances of that person's death. And he announced that he was taking it, and that's going to mean that loads of people are going to take it, when actually it could make things worse. He has limited powers when it comes to state rights, and each state is kind of in control of its own lockdown measures. But he's trying to open up the economy as quickly as possible, because obviously there's an election that's meant to be happening in November, and he wants to show that the economy has recovered. He doesn't want to be in the middle of this crisis in bloody November. And it's so obvious that that is what is driving him to act maybe a bit more rash than he would have otherwise. But good God, I'm putting Donald Trump solidly in D tier. If there were a poo tier, I'd put him in the poo tier. So, you thought that Donald Trump was going to be the worst world leader on this list? Well, let me introduce you to Jair Bolsonaro from Brazil. Oh, poor Brazil. Brazil and the rest of Latin America are quite early on in the stages of being affected by the coronavirus. They actually only recorded their first case of COVID-19 on the 25th of February. So bearing that in mind, Brazil currently stands at 347,398 confirmed cases with 23,013 deaths, which is 10.51 deaths per 100k of population. Definitely not the worst stats on this list. But lots of clever people are looking at the graphs and suggesting that Brazil may be the next epicenter of the coronavirus, and Bolsonaro may be one of the main reasons for that. Bolsonaro has gone through 2 health ministers since the beginning of the crisis, one of whom was sacked because he openly contradicted Bolsonaro's questioning of needing any kind of social distancing guidelines, and the other one was he just quit, and we don't really know why he left. He's never elaborated, but we can assume that it's because Bolsonaro is a dick. Bolsonaro has also been trying to make it easier for citizens to use chloroquine, which is the same malaria preventative drug that Trump has been using, the same drug that possibly could actually make somebody contracting COVID-19, it could make their experience worse. So that's great. He also tried to reclassify gyms, beauty salons and barbers as essential businesses so that everybody could stay hot. Because it's Brazil after all. He's also been turning up at rallies of people supporting him that are people pressed up against barriers, trying to meet him with no attempt at social distancing whatsoever. And he's basically encouraging this. When asked about the rising death rate in Brazil, he responded to a journalist, "What do you expect me to do? I don't know. Like, put in social distancing, you knobhead." And, I mean, on top of that, he's a known homophobe and climate change denier and is quite happy to let the Amazon rainforest burn. He might be the worst person. Brazil is also likely to be really heavily affected by COVID-19 because they have low numbers of ventilators for their population, low number of intensive care beds, their medical services are already stretched, and it's just a bit shit. And their leader, Bolsonaro, is making things worse. And for that reason, Bolsonaro is going in the D tier, alongside Trump, because they're actively making things worse. So this is the tier maker. What do you think? Do you think any are too high or too low? Some of the questionable ones are probably China, Italy, Sweden, probably. Well, let me know in the comments below where you would have put them. If your country isn't on this list, then how will you rank them? Let me know in the comments below. I think it's useful for us to know that the experience that we're having in our own countries is not the be-all and end-all, and it's not inevitable. We need to know how other countries are dealing with this so that we can have expectations of how our governments are going to handle this crisis. At least that's how I'm justifying this video to myself. If you enjoy talking about politics, ooh, I have a podcast. What a surprise. It's called The Right Dishonourable. We talk about politics every week with my friend called Jimmy. It's very good, actually. Oh, hello. Editing fluffy-haired Jazza here. Doesn't this look ridiculous? If you are interested in having some more in-depth discussions about politics with me and my aforementioned podcast host, Jimmy, I'm going to be doing a live stream on this here channel at 8 p.m. British summertime on the 31st of May, which, for a lot of you watching, is going to be tomorrow. Look out for the reminder thing that is going to go out, or just follow me on Twitter. See you there! So click on the subscribe button because I need those numbers to go up in order for me to feel validated in the same way that the Finnish social media influencers have been validated by their government. Thank you very much. And there is a video here that has been selected especially for you by the YouTube algorithm. Very fancy. Very well. I am done now. It's very hot and I'm quite sweaty. Should I wear a bandana again? I don't know. Shave it off? Probably. Okay, goodbye.